So, ready?
Is the lighting good on my face? I can't tell.
Yeah.
All right. Hi guys, welcome back to another episode of Breaking PSYCHles. Today's episode is called ID, and that stands for identification. Today we are here with Edward Quisutachin, and we are going to be discussing his identity and what identity means to him, basically. Welcome, Edward.
Thank you, Nasha. How you doing today?
I'm good. How do you identify?
Well, you already started the intro for me. I'm Edward Quisutachin, and I'm a man, born in Cameroon, born and raised in Cameroon. Now an aspiring motivational speaker,
Okay.
computer scientist, and I'm a rising entrepreneur, trying to lead the way for this generation.
Okay, I like that response. I know a lot of times when we ask people, how do you identify, they automatically jump to either sexuality, race, and identity is about so much more than that. In my opinion, it's about everything internal and not the stuff that's external. You know, I can say I'm a woman, I'm black, but that doesn't really define my character.
True.
So if you had to think of your top 3 morals or values that you hold dear to everything that you do and put out into the world, what would those 3 things be?
But I would say the top first for me is the fear of God.
Fear of God.
That's the first one. The fear of God is my first. The next one would be trust. Trust, because it's and these 3 values for me encompass every other value.
Okay.
Because if you have a fear of God, automatically you will be trustworthy.
Okay.
And the last one will be honesty.
Honesty.
So fear of God, trust, and honesty.
I like that. I like
Yep.
that. I feel like truth and honesty go hand in hand because, a true person is always going to be honest, even if it's difficult to be
Right.
honest. And I think that's a very good value to have because in this fake world full of fake everything, you don't really stumble across, truly honest people. So that's cool. I'm trying to think what my 3 morals would be. I would say definitely top of the list, fear of God. Spirituality, if you don't want to classify it as God. Let me see. I would say respect. And the reason why I would say that is because I feel like respect is very personal. And in order to fully respect somebody, you have to understand what their value of respect is. And so I'm constantly learning of ways that I'm respectful to people and disrespectful to people and how to maneuver between the two, because in different cultures you have different realms of respect, I would say.
Very true.
And my third one, I would say compassion or empathy, which are kind of the same thing. And the reason why I would say that is because we lack that very much. Being human, being judgmental, having these expectations set for us by society, by our parents, by our cultures. And so I think a truly good person is a person who can look at another person and say, I can empathize, although I may not understand, or I can show compassion, although, there are factors that may have led you to this point or things like that. So I think those are my top 3.
Now, having you give me a top 3 actually made me rethink about my top 3. And you did mention that trust and honesty go hand in hand. And I do, and I could see that. Okay. So I would say, if I had to retell you my 3 values, tell you again, it would be fear of God or spirituality, as you said, trust, and respect. Because that's a big one. Because when you look at society, like you said, and if a lot of people understood what respect was, there would be a lot of things that would go right nowadays. Looking at the next person as not less than you, but as a human being, that's something that really, really matters to me. Not treating somebody because he or she has a certain, social, position or influence, but looking at your fellow human being as a human is respect. And when you start thinking that way, it frames the way you act and the way you interact with other people in all dimensions, I think.
Very true. And I feel like that's a part of identity as well, because like you mentioned, it's like you can't look at a person based on their title or their status. And that can go on a large scale as far as like people in positions of power, or it can go on a smaller scale, like your siblings or whatever.
True.
You often look at, your parent or your sibling as being that position and not that human. So when you're looking at your parents, you can't always look at them as like, you have these duties because you're my parent. You have to look at it like, this is also a human being who went through their own experiences, who lived their own life and have their own viewpoints and things like that, and their own things that contributed to their identity. So that's a big part, like respecting and understanding that every individual has their own individual thing that they bring to the world.
And let's not get it twisted. Although that's something that society tends to give more value to, positions and titles, we should try to gravitate towards looking more at a human being than the outside. And like you said, identity is not always about what people see, but who you consider yourself internally to be.
Because there are a lot of people who walk around and they might look like they have everything together, and internally they're very insecure. They're very stagnant. They're very dissatisfied with the life that they're living. And you look at them and you'll say, oh, that person's doing well. Like, they have nice clothes. They had this position in life, and they really going through some things. So when we're looking at identity, I think it's important to tap into what is internal first, and then matriculate that into what's external.
I just want to project and say something right now. I was listening to this African millionaire last week. His name is Ricardo Kanyama. I think he's from the Congo.
Okay.
And he's a millionaire now. But he started off from nothing. And he actually wrote this book in French called La Chef de ma Mère. And that he kind of explains how his journey to, being where he's at right now. And one thing that struck me in particular is he said a lot of people look at rich people from the outside, all the money they have, all the wealth they have. But actually, in order to be rich and financially free, the development starts from the inside. So somebody could put you in the position of a rich man right now, but you don't accomplish all the level of success that person has, because the rich has understood that becoming rich is like a science. There are certain things you need to follow. The way you see money, for example, has to change. The way you see life has to change. You have to understand the principle of multiplication. That's just a basic principle. So a lot of things happen from the inside, even with millionaires that we see. You see people being successful, but even if you're put in that position and your inner thought process is not the same as that of a rich man, obviously you won't be able to accomplish that. So I just thought about that as an aside, and just that I should chip that in.
Nice. So I think we should go into the question of what is the best thing about being from a third world, developing, growing, advancing country.
Okay, I love all the adjectives you used so far, because I personally, I don't understand why we call these countries, and any country in Africa, a third world country. To be honest and frank, we do have a lot of development to make in order to reach the standard of, America or other European countries. But the classifications, first world, third, I don't really like it being called third world country.
Yeah.
But I love how you said developing, advanced, and those are kind of true. I would kind of agree to that. But answering your question, the best thing about being, because I said I was born and raised in Cameroon, that's in Central West Africa, and I can only speak for myself. Okay. So my experience. So growing up in Cameroon, I was blessed to grow up in a household where my parents cared about me, and we weren't like the top rich people, although they had a decent job. They were all teachers. My dad is a professor in university. My mom is also an English and a French teacher. So, growing up and learning moral values that are fundamental to life, have really shaped me into who I am today. So I would say growing up in that environment and the culture, it's just amazing, where you have friends who care for you. You have neighbors to whom you could actually walk up to when you needed something. Growing up in an English system, but being from a French background has also been interesting, because I got to see life from both aspects. As a francophone, the way they look at life and the way they act towards certain things, it's really significantly different from the way an English speaking or English born person does. So having that experience English and French, and also being from the tribe that I am, Bamileke, more specifically in Cameroon, has really been a great experience. And one other thing, before I left Cameroon for the US, I participated in this program at a school called the Catholic University Institute of Boya, and it was all about entrepreneurship, innovation and leadership, and that really framed my thought process. I saw people who grew up in the same country as I did, competing at a continental level. So competing with other African countries, and gaining scholarships to study in the US. So seeing that type of thing happening in Cameroon at the time was really intriguing to me. And I always told, you know what, I am going to be like these people. We eat the same food, we breathe the same air. So why are they doing things that seem impossible, or that seemed impossible at the time to me? So really gaining that experience and seeing how, we don't have a lot of resources to apply the knowledge that we acquire. We go to school, we acquire a lot of knowledge, but we get to a point where the economy and the political system and everything in place is so corrupt sometimes that it's hard to actually see your dreams come true. So I would say it was an honor for me to be born and raised in Cameroon, because Cameroon is so rich. And when I say rich, I mean rich intellectually, rich in terms of natural resources. And when I used to be in Cameroon, there used to be a saying that Cameroon is Africa in miniature. So almost, I won't say everything, but almost all of African's culture is represented in Cameroon some way. So you have the Hausas in Cameroon, you have the Fulanis, you have the Tikar, you have people, the Sawas, you have, the Bamilekes, the Betis, the Ewondo. So there are really so many cultures and tribes in Cameroon that it would seem like it's a melting pot for, all these African cultures. And yeah. So to anyone who wants to visit Africa, I would say you could start with Cameroon and have that experience that you would have had in all the other African countries.
I like how you mentioned that pretty much the best part about being from Cameroon is the culture that is in Cameroon. Right. And I have noticed, being familiar with several African cultures, that is what I find the most beneficial aspect of being a foreigner, quote unquote, is that you have that culture that we lack here in America. African Americans here are kind of categorized in so many different ways that aren't really reflective of the truth behind our people. So to be connected to Africa in any way, shape, or form, Cameroon, Nigeria, Kenya, anyway, is empowering to me, because it's a part of my identity that I really have not been taught being an American born citizen. So could you give us, like, without bashing your country, obviously, what is like the hardest or worst part about being from Cameroon?
Well, I wouldn't say the hardest thing. I would say it's unfortunate that you have so many youths who grow, who are eager to discover what their potential is. I mean, they know they have potential, but they want to discover how far they could take that potential. But it saddens me that the government in place, sometimes it's, like I mentioned earlier, it's sometimes really corrupt. And people have been, I think people's mindset, I don't know, the youths who want to do stuff are not given that arena to actually explore and discover who they are. So it's that part of the country that I think needs development, and I'm really working right now to enrich myself so that I could be able to go back and address that issue. It's one thing to sit here and say, here's the problem in Cameroon, here is what needs to be done, and it's so easy. Talk is cheap. It's easy to do that from a distance, but I think at some point, people need to, make that conscious effort to go back and address these issues. And like I said, Cameroon has potential. Africa has so much potential. There's a reason why it's called the motherland. Now, the African continent is by far the richest continent to me, or one of the richest continents on planet Earth. It gets to a point where it's like, it's a public golden pot that only some select people have access to.
Yeah.
Now, if you're not born of that lineage that will get you there, you find yourself at the bottom of the ladder, struggling, trying to make ends meet, eating or not living appropriately or comfortably because there is money and resources, but people's mindsets just make them think that it all belongs to them and only people from their lineage has access to it. No. We're talking about a country that has over 24 million people, or a continent that has so thousands and millions of people, but the mindset.
Yeah.
The mindset, and that brings us back to the issue about ID. How you see yourself internally, how you think internally really reflects on the outside.
Very
and if we're still if we don't develop our mindsets, the way of thinking, we are going to find ourselves going in this cycle that never ends. People make us believe things that aren't true.
Like everything that you just explained is in America, but on a different scale.
Right.
Like you see the large gap between the poor and the wealthy in America, where it's like, if you're rich, you're well off, you don't really have to struggle to get anything. But if you're poor or you don't come from a certain lineage, you do have to sacrifice and you do have to finesse and you do have to, work twice as hard, maybe 3 times as hard to get to half of where, these rich people are. For America to be such a rich country, why do we have so many homeless people? Why do we have so many places that don't receive fresh drinking water? It just makes no logical sense. It saddens me as well to see that there are so many youth in, Africa in general, Cameroon, Nigeria, Kenya, that have so much potential, like you said, but don't have the resources necessary to utilize that potential. When you look at how these businesses are ran, the reason why America is so successful is because they have the protocol and procedures to allow the system to keep bringing in what it needs to grow and thrive. And I feel like, in a place like Cameroon, it's just that part that's missing. It's not that the resources aren't there. It's not that the space is not there. It's not that the creativity is not there. It's just that the protocol is not there. And you have people who are in positions of power who are not utilizing that power to make effective change with these protocols and procedures. It's like, what has been done is going to keep being done.
Right. At this particular point in this century, in this era, African youth around the globe they've actually become more aware, and there is really a revolution, underway as to things having to change in Africa. And we're not going to get into politics here, but just looking at the scope of things from afar and looking at the way things have really evolved over the years, I think we are getting there, but like I said, a lot more people who've been able to come here and see how different things are should be able to acquire this knowledge and try to transmit it. And that's where also my love for social entrepreneurship comes in. Learning these stuff and trying to apply it to make other people's lives better.
So what exactly motivates you to continue to fight a fight that seems like is not going to be won even in your lifetime? Because I know it's very easy to get engulfed in what it is that you like the accolades you're trying to achieve and miss the bigger picture of leaving something that's going to propel future generations.
So one thing that is, now we're talking about these agendas, they're uncertain, right? But 2 things that I know for a fact are certain is the fact that I was born. There's no doubt about it. I'm born, right? I'm here with you. And that I'm going to die. Those things are for sure. So me, really, a lot of people ask me, hey, Edward, what motivates you every day? What keeps you going? How do you keep this power and how do you keep going? And I just tell them the same thing. We are all born and we're going to die. Now, every day when I think about that, that makes me realize today could be the last day. As a matter of fact, I have a notification coming in my phone every day, every morning. Today could be your last day. So just having that perspective, today could be my last day, makes me, we're all human again. That doesn't mean every day I'm on top of my shit, on top of my game trying to make it happen. But just having in mind that this moment could never come again, or this is a unique opportunity. Every day is a precious day. Thinking about things that way makes me value my time more, makes me value my relationships more, makes me value the way I do things more. And sometimes, if you're in a peer group, that comes up as being weird or whatever. But again, When you think about the fact that you're born, that's a fact. No one can dispute that. And that you're going to die, that kind of sets everything into perspective for you. You understand that you don't have the entire time as some people think. You know what? There's no time to waste. I get sometimes mad when I don't do what I said I was going to do because I know July 22nd, 2019, at this particular time will never come again. So just having that mindset sets everything into perspective. And also, one other thing that really set me on fire last year, growing up, I had never actually lost an immediate family member, but I had my aunt, Tata Janine, may her soul rest in peace. Um, I got the news. I mean, it's a young lady. She wasn't old. I think she was in her early 40s, I think. She went for a meeting with her friends, a peer group, and on her way out, the car knocked her dead.
Oh my goodness.
Now, this is a woman. She left her house in the morning, never imagining she was gonna pass away. She was going to a meeting, having fun with her friends. Coming by, being like, "Hey, I'll see you next month" or something. And there, her life got taken away. Now, look at that example. And I told you I had never witnessed the death of an immediate family member. So when that happened, I sat down. I was like, "Yo, I already know. Every day could be your last day. We hear these things every day. It sounds cliche, or we are blah blah blah. But I'm gonna live my best life." But then I was like, yes, I'm gonna live my best life, but I'm gonna live the best life I would not regret I had lived before. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Living my best life, but living a best life that I'll be proud of.
Yeah.
So the earlier you take action towards your dreams, the better it is for you.
And it's like talking to older people and working with older people allows me to have that perspective of like, you really have to seize the moment, because you're not gonna be this age on this day at this time ever again.
Very true.
So like everything that we just talked about can never be redone,
Right.
and it's like thinking of like that will really make you value your time, value your relationships, and value just the journey that you're blessed with. Because like you said, people die all the time. I gotta do everything I possibly can to reach these youth, because you just never know. You just never know what could happen. You just never know what opportunities are being missed by thinking that you have tomorrow to seek them. You don't. Like, there are some people who didn't wake up this morning. So keeping that in mind will be a great motivational factor for anybody who does that. Now, I know we've been talking a lot. So speaking of motivation and speaking of chasing after your dreams, do you believe in the American dream? Because I feel like you would have a very interesting perspective outside of those American people who have been told what the American dream is.
Right. Well, it's good that you brought that question up. I would not answer this question from what I think people think about the American dream, but from my perspective.
Okay.
So for me, I consider the American dream to be the opportunities you have to be the best version of yourself. So if your question is, do you think America has opportunity to make you reach that full potential? Yes, America has that opportunity. Now, if your question is anything else, then we might have to, have another interview to talk about the American dream in another way. But yes, I think for the time being in the US, I think America has opportunities to help you get where you want to get to, and realize your full potential.
Now let's go back to 13-year-old Edward. You're back in Cameroon. You're flexing, living your best life. About to go to SS1, or how do you call it? I don't know what grade
I was in 13 years. I think I was in Form 3 or 2. I can't remember.
Form 3. So if you were walking down the hallway and you saw 13-year-old Edward, you get to say one thing to him. Not a book, just one thing. What would you say to 13-year-old Edward?
Oh, wow. That's a hard question. Because if you were asking what would you say to Edward, you're right. It would be a book. You already know me. I would definitely have a lot of stuff to tell 13-year-old Edward.
Okay, you have 15 seconds. You walking down the hallway, you see 13-year-old Edward. You have 13 seconds before you time warp back into the future. What would you say? Go.
Hey, Edward. This life is very challenging, very tough. But you have the potential to do anything that you set your mind to. You're smart, you're worthy, and you're able. Do not limit yourself, because you are the hero of your story. No, I'm being serious.
That was you. That was you morphing back into the future. And you're saying that your body's like disappearing. That was really good though. And that's very important, because a lot of people walking around, especially in our generation, like, I'm about to live my best life. I'm gonna go out here and thought. I'm gonna go out here and pop a perk. I'm gonna go out here and do this. And it's like, okay, you're living your best life and you're, living life with no regrets. But are you proud of that? Right. Are you happy that you was drugged out that time? Are you happy that you blacked out on somebody's floor and threw up and all that? Like, that is the most important thing. You have to be proud of the best life that you're trying to live. Absolutely. Don't live up to the standard of hot girl summer and doing things because you don't want to regret. If you're going to look back and say, dang, I wish I didn't do that. You know what I mean?
And put it this way. If living your best life to you is living a life that people will consider to be your best life, that defeats the whole purpose. Social media and the way society puts things down puts a lot of pressure on us, the youth. We see people doing things a certain way and we think that that's the definition of living your best life. Not all the time, and that brings us back again to the concept of internalizing who you are and your identity. Because, if really you think about it and you want to live your best life and you want to do those things that will make you happy and that you would look back at and be like, yo, I'm so proud that I was able to do that. That would not be defined by what other people tell you. Instead, it will be defined by what you thought about yourself and how you put that into practice.
Very true.
So again, internalizing this concept of identity and living your best life and being the best version of yourself is really, really important.
It is important to look at the resources that are around you, look at the opportunities that are in front of you, and decide what it is that fulfills you internally. When we're looking at identity, you have to understand that it's all fun and great to have your friends and your peers and people on social media to praise you for the things that they see you doing. But if you go to bed at night and you're not feeling fulfilled, you're not feeling like you're doing what you love, or you're not putting out into the world what it is that you can put out there to make the world better, then it's really pointless. So it's like, right. When you give the example of going into a kitchen or, modifying a house, you have to look at it like this. What is it that you want to do to that house? What is it that you like to eat or cook or do? And then you start working on those things. But in order for you to get to that point, you have to first start with what it is that you like, what right. it is that you want to do, what it is that you have to offer. There are some people who are extraordinary artists, but they spend all of their time doing financial work because their financial work gives them $300,000 and their artist work gives them $100,000, and then they go home every single night miserable because of this financial work. And it's like, right. okay, you had the money, now you can do whatever you want financially, but you're sad. So it's like, I say that to basically say, like, when you're looking and finding what you're looking to find your purpose, you have to understand that it's about self-gratification and internal peace over money, over your parents' approval, over your friendships, support. It really is personal, and identity and fulfillment of purpose and truth in life is all about what it is inside of you that sustains you. And that might not look the same to your parents. That might not look the same to your mentors. You have to find that out for yourself. And that is by experimenting. That is by finding a niche, finding what it is that when you go home at night, you're like, I'm glad I did that. Right. That made me better. And then the person that also saw me doing that or knows about that also made them better. Because it's not just about making yourself happy. You also have to, like you said, when you die, leave a legacy. Leave something that your kids can say, oh, my mom's associated with that. My Absolutely. Dad is associated with that. Like, that is the whole point, to leave something behind, because you're going to die. And if you're going to die, all right, you die. Nobody knows nothing that you did. Nobody knows the schools you went to. Nobody knows the stuff that you said out of your mouth. What exactly are you leaving behind when you leave this earth? Think right. about that.
And to pick it up from where you just ended, I think a lot of people, when we say, discover what it is that you're good at, sometimes it's like a myth, but we need to realize as human beings, we're human beings, but there's also a spiritual aspect to us. There are certain things that when you do, you just feel connected to. And there are other things
gifts.
There are other things that when you come in contact with, you feel like there's this repelling force. It's not working. Something's not working. And, I believe in God. I really do. And there are certain things that when you do, you don't feel that connection. And that might be just, your spirit telling you this is not for you. And there are other things that when you do, you feel so much harmony, you feel so much calm and peace. And I think for people to also take time to internalize and try to have connection with what they're aspiring for is really important. And sometimes when you talk about, your spirit and your body, a lot of people will be like, I don't believe in that shit. You know what I mean? But
Yeah.
I have a simple example. When you see a corpse, like, so when someone is dead, right? That person is laying there. So what do you think really is the difference between that dead body and you who's alive?
Yeah, it has to be some sort of force within.
Once you take that stance and you're like, I must have been born for a reason. What is this reason? Things start coming into alignment and attraction. Your thoughts start attracting the type of people you talk to, the type of people who come around you. And there is this motivational speaker, Brian Heath. He's actually I think the founder of DMSI here at PGCC.
Yeah.
He said, you don't run after success. You attract success to you by the person that you are. So just something to think about. And when you humble yourself and you admit that you need to discover who you are, that sets your mindset to be open to learn.
Kind of to piggyback off of what you were saying, I wanted to use a biblical reference. It's from Matthew 25, and it's the parable of talents. And it basically, the first and the second servants, they sell their talents away. They're born with these talents. Mind you, this is applicable to us, which is why I'm giving this. We're all born with talents. These 3 servants were all born with the talents that they had. 2 of the servants sold their talents in order to receive that temporary gratification, which was obviously money, gold. Now, the 3rd servant buried his gift and refused to sell it and struggled because of it, and received the greatest blessing because he held on to his gift, and that gift brought him an abundance of life. And so I use that example, and I always use biblical references because for people who are non-religious and had this whole idea that man created Bible and all that, look at these examples in the Bible as what they are: examples, stories, parables, just stories that break down ideas that are applicable to our real life. When we're looking at ourselves and we're looking at our identity and our purpose, we have to understand that the reason why that purpose is instilled in us and the reason why we have to tap into finding that purpose is so that it can bring abundance. It's work. It's not supposed to be you just wake up in the morning and because you can draw, I'm an artist and I just make money because of it. No, you have to figure out what it is that is already built in you. And it's already built in you from the moment that you are conceived in the womb. And those talents can either be nurtured and bear fruit because of that, or it can be neglected or sold or diminished because that sense of identity and that sense of desire to search for that purpose is not there. And so a lot of us in this world have had these talents built in us since birth, grow up to be old 60, 70, 80, 90-year-olds who really have never tapped into what it is their purpose is. So like you said, the younger you start, the sooner you submit yourself to the universe, to God, to your spirituality, to the fact that you are a spiritual being, is the moment that you start seeing the signs, the moment that you can start attracting what it is that you're supposed to be getting out of this life. Because if you think that you were born to just walk around, to make your little money, to shake your little tail feather and to die, then you might as well just end it right now. There's no point to keep going because, are you going to bring fruitfulness to the world? No, because you haven't even tapped into that. So I think that it's really important and for those who are trying to seek who it is they are, what it is they want to do in this life, to first recognize that you are a spiritual being, and to second, really tap into what it is that is your purpose because it's already in you. Last question.
Yes.
What is one thing only, that you hope to do before you die?
Live my best life.
Well, there you have it.
Live my best life, and that goes in all dimensions. Be educationally, professionally, socially, and just be the best version of Edward that I could possibly be.
I think that's really good. I just have one thing I feel like I need to do to leave for my children and for my community, and that is to open a community center. Obviously, I want to do before I die, but the main thing is to provide a resource to people from my community, Chester, Pennsylvania, where they can learn about mental health, because that is the one thing that I believe has kept us in the cycle of oppression, is that we don't understand that it all starts here. A lot of people think it starts here. A lot of people think it starts, externally, but it's really what you see in your head. If you see it as being a way, it is true. So if you think of life as being shitty, it is. If you think of life as being a pool of opportunity, it is. So that is my one thing I want to do before I die, and I will do before I die. And God willing, it will be multiple community centers and multiple communities where mental health is kept at the forefront of all education, because it all starts with the mentality first and the identity that is already within.
I really want to do something along those lines as well. Breaking the cycles that things that are done in a certain way, especially in Africa right now, is the way to go, although you're not seeing the results. So making people to change the way they think about certain things, be more open to seeing things from different horizons, and changing the way things have been done for many years, because the way these things are done right now are not producing the results that we hope for. And being able to empower people across the world, in Africa, in the US, in Asia, in Europe, to be the best versions of themselves, to change their mindset. And that's really what I want to do through my nonprofit, or whatever you call it, nonprofit, yes, that would go to address these issues, breaking cycles, empowering innovation, leadership, producing and grooming leaders who will lead Africa, and who will lead the world as well, to to be a good place to be at.
Before we close, do you have any questions for me?
Yes, I do have a question for you.
Of course.
Go
ahead.
I do have a question for you. You already told us what you want to do before you die, but what keeps you going every day? Why do you do what you do? Why do you do a movement or a show like Breaking PSYCHles? What is that factor that lights that fire in you?
First of all, this is my interview. Good question. I think my motivational force would have to be my spirituality first and foremost, which is something that I've just always felt. Okay. Like the Breaking PSYCHles just was something that came to me. Psychology was something that just came to me. I didn't ask for this. If I don't want to be in front of the camera, so that my spirituality, because I don't know where it came from. But my external factors that contribute are my niece and my nephew, my little cousins, Kenda, rest her soul, all of my family members, the hardship that I've seen growing up, and knowing that there's another way, and seeing and living that there's another way, is what externally motivates me. Like, I wake up every day and I think about the world that I want my niece and my nephew to live in, my future children to live in, and I say, what can I do to push the people, anybody that I touch, towards that direction of growth? Because what we lack as humans is empathy, the ability to see things from different angles and different perspectives, and to understand that everything is personal. There is no right and wrong. And so that's a concept that is almost preposterous to anybody. When I say it, they look at me like, there is right and wrong. There's the laws, there's, spiritual morals, there's the culture that's associated with the rules that people follow, social media and all that. But really, there is no right and wrong. I am never right and you are never wrong. And you are never wrong and I am never right. So that mentality is what I'm hoping this stuff that I'm doing will push people to look at. And every day is a struggle. This shit is not easy. I'll say that. Recording these episodes, doing this work, promoting on social media, thinking about all of the things that are going on in my personal life is not easy. But right. I wake up every day and I know that this is something I have to do. Awesome. It's in me already. I don't ask for this.
So shout out to Naja, really. And I really think that if you ain't giving back, then I don't know what you're doing. So she's been through this, and now she thinks, you know what? I'm going to create this platform that addresses these issues and let people who've been through similar situations know that there's always a way out of stuff. So thanks, Naja, for what you do.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And realistically, like, we're talking about stuff that's not talked about in our communities. And that's the most important thing. Like, we can talk about the stuff that's always talked about. Oh, racial injustice. Oh, social injustice. Oh, police brutality. But let's talk about the homes. Let's talk about where it originates, like parenting. Let's talk about mentality and the cycle of oppression that we've been trained to think. That's the stuff that I want to talk about, the hard stuff. The stuff that goes unaddressed for so long, and the stuff that my generation and the future generations can have the power to change and are changing. We are teaching our parents how to look at things from the perspective of not what it was, but what it can be.
Right.
So.
And there's a saying that good charity starts at home. So I really love the fact that Naja wants to address issues from where what she is from. But most importantly, I already told her we're gonna take this to a different level once we're done addressing issues in our own communities. You know, her in maybe Pennsylvania, me probably in Africa. We want to come together as a joint force to take this movement to the rest of the world. So good charity starts at our homes.
Yep.
But at some point, unity is strength as well.
Yep. And we're just getting started. Yep. And I just want to say thank you for watching. Thank you, Ever, for being here
it's
today.
A pleasure. My pleasure.
This was a great interview, and I'm very excited. And Ever was definitely nervous, so don't let his little poised presidential vibe fool y'all. He's a regular person, just like you and me.
Yeah.
And I'm very proud of everything that you're accomplishing.
Thank you.
And yeah, follow us on Instagram. Yeah, I'll put the @.
Yeah,
follow him.
Yeah, follow me, and
works,
let's grow this community. And we thank God for everything.
Yep, and follow us on Breaking PSYCHles. Subscribe on YouTube. Share with your friend, your grandma, your auntie, your cousin, people in Africa, people in America, people in Europe, all over the world.
Absolutely.
Share. Thanks for watching, and we will definitely be back. Is that we can probably end like that. All right, let's end with a well.
Okay.
1, 2, 3.
Doubt.